The polished marble floor reflected the chandeliers like a dark mirror as I stepped into the gala, my custom Oxfords clicking with deliberate precision. The air smelled of expensive perfume and champagne bubbles, the kind of atmosphere that used to make my chest swell with pride. Tonight, it turned to acid in my throat. 200 heads swiveled toward me in perfect unison, the murmurs dying mid-sentence. A waiter froze with a tray of knapes, his eyes darting toward the exit like he sensed impending disaster. Then the whispers started. "Look, it's him," hissed a woman in emerald silk, her martini glass tilting dangerously. Her companion, some junior exec from the marketing department, didn't bother lowering his voice. Christ, the 1-minute man actually showed up. The laughter hit like a wave, crashing over me in staccato bursts. At the far end of the ballroom, the spotlight caught the diamond teardrops in my wife's ears as she accepted the Visionary of the Year award. Her coral-painted lips stretched in a practiced smile. The MC had just finished praising her, unparalleled leadership when she glanced toward the commotion. Our eyes met for one suspended second, long enough to see her pupils constrict, before her gaze slid past me like I was a smudge on a window. The CFO emerged from her shadow, his Brioni suit, costing more than most people's cars. I'd introduced them 3 years ago when we acquired his startup. Now his manicured fingers curled possessively around my wife's elbow as he leaned in to whisper something that made her laugh. The sound cut through the room sharper than the violin. "Solo, security," he called, snapping his fingers like summoning a dog. "We have an uninvited guest." His smirk widened as 2 uniformed men materialized at my sides. "Remove this embarrassment, would you?" The guard on my left smelled like nicotine and cheap aftershave. His partner's breath was worse, stale coffee and something metallic. Their gloved hands bit into my biceps with unnecessary force, my suit jacket bunching under their grip. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, some guests pressing back against the linen-draped tables, others leaning forward with naked curiosity. My gift, a velvet box containing a silver bracelet engraved with "To the woman who built this," slipped from my fingers and skidded across the floor, coming to rest against the base of a potted fern. The last thing I saw before the heavy doors swung shut was my wife's assistant scooping it up with a pitying glance, tucking it into her clutch like evidence at a crime scene. The night air hit my face like a slap. The valet gaped at me, my keys clutched in his white-knuckled hand. "Your car, Mr. Whitmore?" I took the keys without a word, the Lamborghini's remote cold against my palm. The drive home passed in a blur of neon and honking horns, my knuckles pale on the steering wheel. The penthouse elevator played Vivaldi as it ascended. How many times had we ridden up together after events, her laughing about some investors? Terrible tie, me loosening my collar as we planned the next quarter's strategy. Tonight, the mirrored walls showed only my reflection, tie slightly crooked, the beginnings of gray at my temples that she used to tease me about. I poured 3 fingers of Macallan without turning on the lights. The amber liquid got the skylines glow as I sank into my leather chair and pulled up the security feed. The gala cameras had been my idea. After the 2018 hacking scandal, I'd insisted on redundant systems. Now they showed me what I needed to see. My wife and her lover in the green room, his hands roaming her waist as she adjusted his tie. The audio was crystal clear. "Relax," she murmured, her lips brushing his earlobe. "He's too busy playing the wounded husband to check the Cayman accounts." The CFO's chuckle made my stomach turn. By the time he realizes we've moved another 12 mil, it'll be too late. The whiskey burned its way down my throat as I maximized another window, our offshore banking portal. The password, anniversary 2015, still worked. The screen filled with transaction records, each dated September 14th, our wedding anniversary. $12 million labeled consulting fees over 3 years. The most recent transfer had cleared last Tuesday, the same day she'd claimed her mother needed emergency surgery in Zurich. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up marine traffic records. The CFO's yacht, which I'd designed the loan for, showed an interesting pattern. Every time she claimed a women's leadership retreat in the Bahamas, the vessel's GPS placed it docked at Elbow Cay. Same dates. Same cover story. The final piece came from an unexpected source, our shared Amazon account. Scrolling through order history revealed 2 of everything. Identical silk robes, duplicate jewelry cleaners, even twin sets of monogram towels. All shipped to an address in Tribeca I didn't recognize. The confirmation email included a note, "For our real home D." The glass shattered against the wall before I realized I'd thrown it. Scotch dripped down the abstract painting we'd bought on our honeymoon in Barcelona. In the silence that followed, I became aware of my own breathing, ragged like I'd run a marathon. The security feed still played on loop, showing them laughing as they left the green room, her hand tucked into his back pocket. I reached for the phone, then stopped. No angry calls, no drunken text. Instead, I opened a fresh spreadsheet and began typing. Column A, dates. Column B, amounts. Column C, lies. The numbers told their own story. By sunrise, I had a plan, cold, precise, and utterly without mercy. The whiskey bottle stood empty on the desk, its contents replaced by something far more intoxicating: purpose. The bracelet would remain unopened, but every other secret was about to be exposed. The glow from my laptop screen painted the dark, study in eerie blue as I dug deeper into the financial records. My fingers flew across the keyboard with a precision I hadn't felt in months, each keystroke uncovering another layer of deception. The offshore transfers were just the beginning. I pulled up the corporate accounting software, the one I personally vetted when we took the company public. The login screen mocked me with its cheerful greeting. Welcome back, Daniel Whitmore. How many nights had I spent here, poring over spreadsheets while she schmoozed investors at cocktail parties? Now, those same spreadsheets would reveal her betrayal. The Cayman Islands account transactions appeared innocent enough at first glance, legitimate. Consulting fees paid to Horizon Strategic Solutions. But when I cross-referenced the dates, a chilling pattern emerged. Every single transfer, 12 in total, each exactly $1 million, had been processed on September 14th, our wedding anniversary. The first payment cleared 3 months after. I introduced her to Derek Carlisle at that godforsaken Hamptons fundraiser. I opened a new tab and searched for Horizon Strategic Solutions. The website was professional enough, sleek graphics, vague promises of disruptive innovation consulting. But the domain registration told a different story. Registered 6 days before the first transfer to a PO box in Grand Cayman. The administrative contact? d.carlisle@vertexholdings.com. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. He hadn't even bothered to use a private email. The yacht records proved even more damning. As majority shareholder, I still had access to all corporate asset tracking. The Blue Horizon, the 85-foot azimuth we'd purchased for client entertainment, showed an interesting travel history. According to the logs, it had spent every one of her so-called women's leadership retreats docked at the same private marina. In Elbow Cay, the same marina I discovered with a quick property record search, owned by a shell corporation called Mariner Holdings LLC. My hands shook as I pulled up the articles of organization. The registered agent's name jumped off the screen. Derek Matthew Carlisle. The final piece came from an unexpected source, our shared Amazon account. I'd forgotten we still had linked profiles until a notification popped up about a recent purchase. $200 worth of luxury bed linens shipped to an address in Tribeca. Our billing address was on Park Avenue, the Cayman Islands account. Transactions appeared innocent enough at first glance, legitimate consulting fees paid to Horizon Strategic Solutions. But when I cross-referenced the dates, a chilling pattern emerged. Every single transfer, 12 in total, each exactly $1 million, had been processed on September 14th, our wedding anniversary. The first payment cleared 3 months after. I introduced her to Derek Carlisle at that godforsaken Hamptons fundraiser. I opened a new tab and searched for Horizon Strategic Solutions. The website was professional enough, sleek graphics, vague promises of disruptive innovation consulting. But the domain registration told a different story. Registered 6 days before the first transfer to a PO box in Grand Cayman. The administrative contact? d.carlisle@vertexholdings.com. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. He hadn't even bothered to use a private email. The yacht records proved even more damning. As majority shareholder, I still had access to all corporate asset tracking. The Blue Horizon, the 85-foot azimuth we'd purchased for client entertainment, showed an interesting travel history. According to the logs, it had spent every one of her so-called women's leadership retreats docked at the same private marina. In Elbow Cay, the same marina I discovered with a quick property record search, owned by a shell corporation called Mariner Holdings LLC. My hands shook as I pulled up the articles of organization. The registered agent's name jumped off the screen. Derek Matthew Carlisle. The final piece came from an unexpected source, our shared Amazon account. I'd forgotten we still had linked profiles until a notification popped up about a recent purchase. $200 worth of luxury bed linens shipped to an address in Tribeca. Our billing address was on Park Avenue. I scrolled back through the order history, my stomach tightening with each swipe. Duplicate purchases going back 18 months, everything from kitchen appliances to sex toys. All shipped to 172 Franklin Street, apartment 12B. The confirmation emails contained little notes that made my vision blur. For our real home D, and can't wait to break these in E. The printer whirred to life as I began compiling the evidence. Page after page of financial records, GPS logs, and receipts slid into the tray. My hands, which had trembled with rage just hours earlier, were now steady as a surgeon's. Each document was another bullet in the chamber dot as the last page printed. I reached for the framed photo on my desk, the two of us at the company's IPO, her smiling up at me with what I thought was admiration. Now I recognized the calculation. In those green eyes. I turned it face down just as my cell phone buzzed. A text from her. We need to talk. I can explain. The game had changed. For the first time in months, I felt completely calm, because now I held all the cards. And I knew exactly how to play them. The whiskey glass left a wet ring on the mahogany desk as I reached for my phone. My thumb hovered over the contact I'd sworn I'd never call. Margaret Holloway, the pitbull divorce attorney who'd eviscerated my wife's first husband. I remembered how Elena had laughed about it over brunch. Poor Richard never saw it coming. When she froze his accounts, the memory made my finger press call with extra force. Margaret answered on the second ring. Whitmore, she said, her voice like gravel and cigarette smoke. I wondered how long it would take you to call. I didn't ask how she knew. In the city, the good divorce lawyers always knew before the spouses did. I want everything frozen before. She realizes I know, I said, watching the rain streak the penthouse windows. Corporate accounts, personal accounts, the yacht, the Tribeca apartment, everything. Margaret's pen scratched across paper. The prenup gives you considerable leverage, she mused, but we'll need evidence of financial misconduct to lock down the corporate assets. Check your email, I said, hitting send on the files I'd compiled. The printer in my home office whirred as it spat out more documents. $12 million in offshore transfers disguised as consulting fees. All dated on our anniversary because apparently my wife enjoys poetic irony. A low whistle came through the phone. Christ, they weren't even subtle about it. I heard her lighting a cigarette. I'll have temporary restraining orders filed by noon. You realize this will scorch earth, right? There's no coming back from this. I stared at the photo of us on our wedding day, now face down on the desk. There hasn't been a marriage to come back to for a long time, Margaret. The next call went to a different kind of professional. Vincent Capello answered on the fifth ring, the sounds of a busy diner in the background. Mr. Whitmore, he said around what sounded like a mouthful of pastrami, heard about the gala. Rough night. Vincent had been my head of security before. Elena convinced me to replace him with one of Derek's frat brothers. I need eyes on them 24/7, I said. And dig into those expense reports from the last quarter. Something's off about the Miami conference. Already on it, Vincent said. I heard his chair scrape back. Text me that Tribeca address. I'll have your answers before the markets close. I spent the afternoon in a fog of spreadsheets and subpoena requests. Margaret's team moved with terrifying efficiency. By 3 p.m., I received confirmation that the Cayman accounts were frozen. At 3:17, a notification came through that the Coast Guard had impounded the Blue Horizon at its slip in Martha's Vineyard. Derek's panic voicemail at 3:42 confirmed he'd just been denied at the Porsche dealership when trying to lease a new 911. Vincent arrived at 5 p.m. with a manila envelope thick enough to be a murder weapon. You're gonna love this, he said, spreading photos across my desk. Your boy Derek's been creative with his expense reporting. The images showed Derek and Elena at various luxury hotels, restaurants, and my personal favorite, a $15,000 weekend at a Napa Valley spa, all charged to the company as client development. The piece de resistance was a receipt from Tiffany & Co. for $85,000, listed as office decor with a grainy security photo of Elena trying on an emerald necklace. Wait till you see the tax implications, Vincent said, flipping to the last page. Our CFO friend hasn't been reporting these as executive compensation. The IRS would have a field day. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under me. The pieces were falling into place with beautiful symmetry. Elena and Derek had scheduled a board meeting for tomorrow morning to announce record quarterly profits. That would evaporate when the frozen accounts came to light. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Judge signed off on the asset freeze. They don't know yet. Want to be there when they find out? I smiled for the first time in days. The stage was set. Tomorrow, when Elena stood before the board to celebrate her triumph, she'd learn what happened when you betrayed. The man who built your empire. The man who knew where all the bodies were buried because he'd dug the graves himself. The grandfather. Clock in the hall chimed 7 times as I poured myself another drink. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, cold, distant, and indifferent. To the storm about to break, I raised my glass to the reflection in the window, to the end of an era, and to the sweet, slow burn of revenge. The boardroom hummed with self-congratulatory energy as I slipped in through the side entrance, unnoticed. Crystal glasses clinked around the mahogany table where 20 of Wall Street's sharpest minds lounged, basking in Elena's glow. She stood at the head of the table, her emerald blazer catching the morning light, pointer stick resting against a chart showing Vertex Holdings' historic Q3 profits. I leaned against the back wall, fingers brushing the phone in my pocket containing the files Vincent had risked his neck to get. The air smelled of expensive coffee and richer egos. Derek held court near the espresso cart, regaling junior executives with some bullshit story about his yacht, our yacht, that the Coast Guard was currently seizing at my request. Which is why we're projecting 20% growth in European markets. Elena announced, tapping the screen to reveal a glowing upward trend line. The board members nodded like bobbleheads. Old man Henderson actually wiped a tear from his eye. None of this would be possible without our visionary financial strategy. My stomach turned. Their visionary strategy was printed in my breast. Pocket, 12 pages of doctored invoices, forged signatures, and offshore transfers timed to our anniversaries like some sick joke. The bracelet I bought her last year, the one she'd let fall to the gala floor, suddenly felt heavy in my jacket pocket where I'd kept it as a reminder. The screen changed to a champagne bottle popping animation. A toast, Derek declared, handing Elena a flute. Their fingers lingered too long. I saw the way his thumb stroked hers, the way she bit her lip exactly like she used to do for me in the early days when we'd celebrate small wins in our cramped office. That's when I made my move. The room's Bluetooth connected with a soft chime as I activated the projector override. Elena's precious profit charts dissolved into something far more interesting. A scanned copy of the Tiffany receipt for $85,000, clearly marked office decor, but showing security footage of Elena modeling the emerald necklace in Derek's office. The date stamp, our last anniversary. Chaos erupted. What the hell? Derek's champagne flute shattered on the floor. Elena's pointer stick clattered as the next slide appeared, side-by-side comparisons of the Cayman transfers with photos from their business trips. There they were on the blue. Horizon's deck. Elena in that same bikini she told me she'd lost. Derek's hand sliding under the sarong I bought her in Bali. Funny, I said, stepping forward as 20 heads swiveled toward me. These record profits match the stolen millions dollar for dollar. I tapped my phone and the screen split again. Offshore account statements on the left, Vertex's official books on the right. Almost like someone's been cooking the books for 3 years. The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. Henderson's dentures slipped. The junior exec who'd been laughing at Derek's yacht story turned corpse pale. Elena's perfect facade cracked. Daniel, this isn't the place. I finished advancing toward the table. You're right. The place for this is federal court. I nodded to the door where 2 men in suits entered. Not security, but SEC investigators Margaret had tipped off. Gentlemen, meet the real visionaries behind Vertex's success. Derek made a break for the emergency exit. Smart move. Pity Vincent was waiting there with handcuffs and a smirk. Going somewhere, Carlisle? The IRS has questions about your consulting fees. The board members scrambled back like Elena carried the plague. Papers flew as she reached desperately for the projector controls. This is a misunderstanding. Daniel's bitter because you embezzled $12 million. I tossed a stack of documents onto the table. They fanned out like a poker. Hand showing a royal flush, bank records, GPS logs, even the damn Amazon receipts for their real home. Here's the marriage counselor we needed. The silence that followed was sweeter than any revenge fantasy. Elena's perfect manicure dug into the mahogany. Derek's tailored suit suddenly looked 2 sizes too big as he shrank in his chair. The board. Members' eyes darted between us like spectators at a tennis match. Then, like the final nail in a very expensive coffin, the conference room TV flickered to life with a news alert. Breaking, Vertex Holdings CFO detained in alleged fraud scheme. Shares plummet 40% in pre-market trading. Henderson found his voice first, motioned to terminate both executives immediately. The eyes came like gunshots. I turned toward the door, the bracelet in my pocket suddenly weightless. Behind me, Elena's desperate whisper carried, "Daniel, please." The hallway outside was quiet. No cameras, no laughter. Just the satisfying click of my Oxfords on marble as I walked away from the wreckage. The silence didn't sting anymore. It bowed before me. The kind of respect you earn when you stop being the joke and become the judge. Somewhere behind me, federal agents read Miranda rights. Somewhere above, shareholders panicked. And somewhere in Tribeca, 2 silk robes hung in a closet that would soon belong to a bankruptcy court. I stepped into the elevator and pressed L for lobby. As the doors closed, I finally let myself smile. The 1-minute man had just delivered a lesson that would last them a lifetime. The salty Atlantic breeze carried the faint scent of chlorine and regret as I adjusted my sunglasses on the boardwalk. 1 year to the day since the boardroom massacre, and life had settled into a rhythm as soothing as the waves crashing against the shore below. My fingers trailed along the railing as I walked. The platinum wedding band I'd finally removed months ago, now replaced by a simple titanium band, a gift to myself when Soul Weave hit its first million in revenue. A familiar laugh cut through the ocean sounds. There, on the 3rd-floor balcony of a shabby beachfront cafe, Derek Carlisle held court with his new coworkers, if you could call the group of hungover tourists clustered around him that. His once impeccable haircut had grown out into a shaggy mess, the sleeves of his garish polo shirt rolled up to reveal fading yacht tan lines. And that's when I told the CEO, he slurred, gesturing with a beer bottle, "You can't just, hey." His punchline died as a golf bag slipped off his shoulder. Clubs clattering to the deck. The name tag on his chest read Derek Caddy Services in cheerful script. One of the tourists snorted into his mimosa. I watched as Derek scrambled to collect the clubs, his face flushing the same shade as his sunburned neck. The blue horizon, now renamed The Bottom Line, floated in the marina behind him, a party boat for bachelor weekends. Its hull streaked with bird droppings and poor maintenance stopped my phone buzzed. A text from Vincent, check page 6. The attached photo showed Elena standing behind a counter at a discount perfume kiosk in some Midwestern mall, her once glossy hair pulled into a severe ponytail, dark circles under her eyes visible even. Through the grainy paparazzi shot, the headline, "From Boardroom to Bargain Bin, Disgraced CEOs Fall from Grace." The caption noted her new signature scent was called Rebound, a fitting name for something that allegedly smelled like regret and synthetic roses. According to customer reviews, I tucked the phone away as a seagull cried overhead. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd once graced the cover of Forbes, now hawking $9.99 body sprays to bored housewives, while Derek fetched golf clubs for men half his intellect. Karma had a way of being both poetic and pedestrian. The walk back to my car took me past the old Vertex Holdings building. The gleaming glass tower now bore a new name. One of our competitors had scooped up the space at auction. Through the lobby windows, I could see workers dismantling Elena's prized innovation wall, the one that had displayed her magazine covers and awards. A janitor tossed a framed Visionary of the Year plaque into a rolling dumpster with a clatter dot. My driver held the door open as I slid into the back seat of the modest Audi, a far cry from the Bentleys of my past life, but it suited the man I'd become. As we pulled away, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Margaret, my pitbull attorney turned occasional drinking buddy. Heard from the SEC today. Carlisle's looking at 5 to 7. Elena's bankruptcy hearing got postponed again. Still can't believe she tried to claim those Tiffany earrings as a business expense. Priceless. I chuckled, watching the city blur past. The money hadn't mattered in the end, though getting back every cent plus interest had been satisfying. No, the real victory had been watching the house of cards they built come tumbling down. Wow. I walked away unscathed. Soulweave's success was just the cherry on top. The car slowed as we approached my new building, a converted loft space in the arts district, all exposed brick and sunlight. No marble, no pretension. Just space to breathe and build something real. As I stepped out, a delivery van pulled up bearing our logo and the tagline I'd chosen, Honest Innovation. Inside, the team was gathered around a laptop watching our latest investor pitch. Ava, my brilliant, no-nonsense co-founder, paused the video as I entered. "They loved it," she said, her grin brighter than any of Elena's forced smiles had ever been. Series B funding secured. Also, some reporter from the Times wants to talk about our ethical business model. She rolled her eyes. I told them to speak to the guy who actually knows what he's doing. Laughter filled the air, real laughter, not the performative kind that used to echo through Vertex's halls. As I looked around at the team I'd built, the people who showed up every day, not because of some cult of personality, but because they believed in the work, I felt something I hadn't in years. Pieced up later that night as I sat on my balcony with a glass of reasonably priced scotch, I scrolled through the comments on our launch video. Among the congratulations was one that made me pause. Was the revenge worth it? From some anonymous account, I thought about the bracelet still tucked in my desk drawer, the late nights poring over financial records, the look on Elena's face when the projector switched to those damning receipts, the sound of Derek's voice cracking as the agents cuffed him. My finger hovered over the keyboard before typing the only honest answer. No, but rebuilding myself was. The ocean wind carried away the last of the daylight as I closed the laptop. Somewhere out there, my past was rotting in a jail cell and a mall kiosk. And here I was, finally free. The likes, the comments, the vindication, none of it compared to this quiet moment, this second chance, this life reclaimed on my own terms. I sipped the scotch, savoring its smoky bite. The sunset painted the waves gold, then pink, then finally a deep blue that matched the titanium band on my finger, unpretentious, unbreakable, and unmistakably mine.